Good evening, and welcome to the August 26, 2019 Muskogee City Council meeting. Please stand for the invocation by Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson, followed by the flag salute.
You would bow with me in prayer this evening. Dear Lord, Heavenly Father, as we come to you this night, dear Lord, we're so thankful for the many blessings that you provide for us each and every day. Dear Lord, we ask that you would put a hedge of protection around our community. Continue, dear Lord, to protect our officers, our uniform officers, our fire department as they continue to protect our community. For our non-uniform officers, dear Lord, I ask that you would protect them as they continue to provide for our infrastructure needs for our community, especially in this heat each and every day. And we thank you, dear Lord, so much for our workers that continue to provide. We thank you, dear Lord, for the leadership and for those people that you have sent to our community. Dear Lord, we ask, dear Lord, for your wisdom and your insight this evening in tonight's meeting as we make decisions, that we would seek your wisdom and your knowledge. We thank you for everything that you provide for us each and every day. We ask these things in the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Here.
Evelyn Hibbs. Here. Dan Hall.
Here.
Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Jamie Stout. Here. Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Kale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
And we're all here. You've had a chance to look at the minutes of the City Council regular session, August 12, 2019. What is your pleasure?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs. Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout. Yes. Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. And you've had a chance to look over the consent agenda of items 1 through 6. Is there anything anybody wants to move to the regular agenda?
Make a motion to approve consent agenda items 1 through 6.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs. Yes. Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout. Yes. Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 7.
Receive report from the Muskogee City County Port Authority regarding their industrial development projects, goals, and activities for January 2019 through June 2019 and take other necessary action.
Mr. Miller.
Yes, as you know, we contract with the Port of Muskogee and their industrial development office to recruit industry and retain industry for us. And Marie Sinar is here to give us a report.
Thank you.
So good evening, Mayor, Manager, and Councilors. Thank you so much for this opportunity to address you tonight. Under our contract with the city to provide industrial economic development services on behalf of the city, we are required to give 2 reports a year. And so this will be our semi-annual report covering the first 6 months of the year. And so with that, you have received the full report. It's a wonderful document. I do hope you take some time to thoroughly read through all the activities that we were involved in during the year. But I did want to hit some highlights. And with that, I'll start with what the purpose of our organization is and kind of what we charge ourselves in fulfilling that contract with the city. And so our mission, really in a nutshell, is to increase business investment and new job opportunities in the community. And we do that really through 4 main initiatives, the first of which is, of course, the attraction and recruitment of new industries. We also provide opportunities and hopefully facilitate an environment that allows our existing companies to grow. And so through our business retention and expansion program, we look at those efforts. The third thing we do is workforce development, and that's because it's so important to communities throughout the United States. I mean, our unemployment rate right now is less than 3.5%. So making sure not only is there an existing and future pipeline of workers for our existing companies, but also for the companies that we're trying to recruit, that's definitely a space that we need to play in. And the fourth is kind of a catch-all. We call it product development. And really, it's essentially everything from looking at new real estate opportunities, monitoring our buildings and making sure that we have adequate information to provide to prospects, but also everything that affects our product. And our product is our community, and so that also includes our involvement in quality of life factors that affect the city. And so with that, I wanted to highlight, we do have other things that we charge ourselves in our program of work, and again, that is in your full report, but really those are the four categories. So under business recruitment, I did wanted to share with you, for the first 6 months, we managed 40 recruitment projects. 18 of those were new projects during the first 6 months, and 21 of those 40 projects still remain active today. And so, the saying goes, shoot everything that flies and claim everything that lands, right? And so we're going to continue to promote Muskogee to any company looking at us for the relocation or expansion of their business. But that said, as we're trying to maximize our marketing dollars and also leverage the partnerships that we have available to us, we have identified 4 target industries in which we feel are best for Muskogee. And you see those target industries there: food and beverage manufacturing, construction materials manufacturing, metal fabrication, and specifically automotive parts manufacturing. Automotive parts manufacturing is a new target industry that the state has also adopted, and so it's very complementary with the state's efforts. One thing that's really, or that I like to stress about these target industries, is they're not new to Muskogee. In fact, the pictures that you see there are actually our existing manufacturers. The only caveat I will put in there is the automotive parts manufacturing. For those of you who don't know, we manufacture fuel tanks at the Port of Muskogee under Proform. And so those fuel tanks, their largest customer is Navistar or the Tulsa bus plant. And so that's actually a picture of the Tulsa bus plant. But that's what we are trying to accomplish. Whenever I'm visiting with our existing manufacturers, one of the questions I always ask them is, as we are recruiting new businesses to Muskogee, what businesses can we recruit that's going to help your business? So whether, up and down the supply chain, whether it's a supplier or a customer of theirs, that's what we want to do, is to try to grow those industry clusters here in Muskogee. It also helps with our workforce because those are complementary skill sets. And so with that, I also want to let you know that we are still very close working with the Governor's Economic Development Marketing Team, the Oklahoma Foreign Direct Investment Team, also with our colleagues at the Oklahoma Department of Commerce and the Tulsa Futures Program through the Tulsa Regional Chamber, and OG&E. Oklahoma Gas and Electric has become, and it has always been, but certainly in the few recent years, a great economic development partner for us. They are actually bringing us a number of leads over the last several years, and so I definitely want to include them. Also, as far as the Tulsa Futures Program, which Muskogee has been a part of, more of a regional approach to the recruitment of new businesses, I was recently asked to co-chair their business attraction and marketing team. And so now we are actually leading our region in defining what markets we want to go and promote ourselves in and how we're managing those projects. And so it's an exciting time for that. That said, I threw this slide. Many of you have heard me talk about these statistics before, but I always want to remind you, because we always get, why don't we get another Georgia Pacific or Dow Tile? It's because those projects don't happen every day. And so here's the stats that float around out there in the industry. On average, there are 1,500 companies looking to expand or relocate in the U.S. in any given year. There are more than 25,000 communities with paid economic development staff that are competing for those 1,500 projects. Add to that that 75% of those 1,500 companies or projects end up locating in an urban area, leaving only 25% for us more rural communities. Add to that 90% of those projects will employ 100 employees or less. And so the chances of us landing that next big fish, I actually did the math, it's 37, by the way. So we have an opportunity to go after 37 big fish projects a year. That said, that's not taking into consideration the fact that those companies more than likely have geographic preferences. And so they want to be in a certain area of the United States. So the fact that, our ability to compete for 37 is probably more than like 5 a year. That said, the 40 projects that we manage this year, Muskogee competes at a very high level. We put together a great product and have a great product to sell. And so I'm happy to report that we've gotten nearly about 40% of the projects that we submit for, we end up getting a site visit by the company, and that's pretty impressive. So, because the competition for new recruiting businesses is intense and successes are few and far between, that's why we spend so much time working with our existing businesses. And in fact, 80% of new growth in a community comes from the expansion of existing businesses. And so I'm not going to read that slide to you. You can read that. But, we do a lot through our BRNE program. And so first and most importantly, we go out and visit companies. That's where you hear about their pain points, learn about their business plan, and figuring out how we can get ourselves involved and help them to grow. With that, we also, for those that have corporate offices, we do corporate headquarter visits. And so we did have an opportunity this year to go and visit the corporate offices of Georgia Pacific and Owens, Illinois. The GP visit was very timely. We had that one scheduled in advance. I was about to fly out the next night that we found out that the plant caught fire. So again, it was very timely, but that's the importance of making those corporate visits, is that those corporate offices know how important that we feel that those facilities are to our community, and hopefully that will lend to them making those improvements or investments. And so with that, we also have our Greater Muskogee Manufacturers Alliance. In July, this group turned 11, which I am very proud of. These manufacturers continue to see value in this group. They get together monthly, bi-monthly, and learn, from each other. They hear from outside experts, and they also do plant tours of each other's facilities that really allow them to kind of benchmark themselves to other manufacturers as well. This year, so far this year, the first 6 months, we facilitated 13 expansion projects with area manufacturers. 3 of those 13 projects were completed the first 6 months of this year. The 3 expansion projects that completed added 20 new jobs at an average salary of $42,000 and $113 million in new investment. We also had an opportunity to provide or to serve as a liaison for the 2019 Arkansas River flood. That kept us pretty busy for a while. We were able to provide those companies information on their facility elevations, as well as real-time updates on river levels and projections, and provided referrals for workforce and recovery assistance. We continue to remain engaged in that effort through the Muskogee County Disaster Recovery Committee. We also want to help these manufacturers do business with each other. If they're not going to do business locally, we want them to do business regionally. If we can't do business regionally, we want them to do business in the state. And so for the last several years, our office has encouraged our manufacturers to participate in the Northeast Oklahoma Regional Manufacturers Networking events. We had an opportunity this year in March to host that event for the first time in 5 years that we've participated. And so we had the opportunity, it was more than 30 regional manufacturers that participated. We did do surveys after the event, and 65% received new business as a result of participation. So, that's what we want. Again, that's how you grow your manufacturers, get them more sales. But we do everything else from, monitoring industry trends and encouraging them to diversify their industries. We promote training programs and professional development opportunities and provide referrals for technical assistance. One of those pictures on there, and you can't really see it, but it's the one on the far right, is actually Owens, Illinois. They recently received a rebate from OG&E on a lighting incentive project that we helped them with. And so we also provide education on available incentive programs and grant opportunities are available to them. So, of course, this is where, I might get on my soapbox. I'll try to keep this brief. But the number one factor affecting business relocations and closures, as well as new business investments, workforce availability and available skilled labor. And so the best way to help our existing businesses and, set ourselves apart from our competition when we're trying to recruit new businesses is to make sure that not only can these companies get the talent that they need today, but that we're taking steps to make sure that they have access to a future pipeline of workers that will allow them to be in business 20 years from now, because that's what they're looking at. So through our local Dream It, Do It program, we are providing a forum that connects our area manufacturers and our local workforce and education partners. This committee is focused on career awareness, internships, and education pathways. They do everything from classroom visits to block party events, plant tours, high school manufacturing club. By the way, the High School Manufacturing Club, if you've not heard me say it before, is the first one, not only in the state, but west of the Mississippi River. Awesome, awesome, awesome that we have that right here in Muskogee. There are STEM clubs and robotics clubs in high school, but this is the first true manufacturing club, again, west of the Mississippi, that we've been able to find. The neat thing about that club is they have actually, the whole goal and purpose is the kids that are in that manufacturing club, when they graduate, they'll know the HR managers. They'll have walked through the facilities and through these plants. So really providing them a leg up whenever they graduate or are looking to enter the workforce. Along those lines, by the way, we also educate the educators. And so we do a STEM teacher summit during the summer, as well as provide plant tours for administrators through the Muskogee Area Education Consortium. So our GMMA turned 11 this year. Last year, to commemorate their 10-year anniversary, they started looking at opportunities, and one of the things that the groups decided to do was create a GMMA scholarship program. The manufacturers themselves raised $5,000 and awarded 4 $1,250 scholarships this year. Two of those went to Muskogee High School graduates that were part of our manufacturing club. One of them went to a Rougher Alternative Academy graduate, and the third went to an incumbent worker currently employed by Advantage Controls who does not offer tuition reimbursement or assistance for continuing education. And so we're excited. All 4 of those will be taking programs at Indian Capital, and we're very excited to be able to arrange that and help organize that. So we have to stop the brain drain. That's my biggest pet peeve, is that our youth cannot graduate not knowing the job opportunities that exist here in Muskogee. And so providing them awareness, whether it's getting them in the class, going to the classroom or getting them on plant tours, that is a gap that's not being filled by any other provider. And so that's why we're involved. So I wanted to share with you this. This is probably the most important slide that I have on here. So the days, I wanted to share with you kind of how it used to be and the way things are now. Again, I already mentioned that the availability of talent is the most important location criterion for site selectors and companies. But the days of workers chasing companies, it's over. It's not how it's done. It used to be that you attract a company, workers come, and then they improve your quality of life. Well, it's completely done a flip. Communities have to create a quality of place that attracts talent. And when you've got that talent, that's what companies are looking for, is to be close to that talent. And so add to that the odds are a bit stacked against us, and that population in rural communities will continue to decline and are projected to continue to decline. And I probably could have added about 5 more slides on here to talk about this, but I decided just to kind of sum it up. So what I did find is 99% of population growth over the last 10 years occurred in metro counties or counties directly adjacent to metro counties. So while Muskogee is not a metro area, we are an economic hub, and that we are situated between the Tulsa and Fort Smith metro areas. And with that, we are in a unique situation in that we provide job opportunities for surrounding cities and towns. And here's what I mean by that. According to the 2017 American Community Survey through the census, Approximately 8,500 people commute to Muskogee each day for work. That's 20% of our workforce. 20% of our workforce commutes to Muskogee every day for work. So it is projected that over the next 5 years, and we've seen this continuing decline, that we will lose over the next 5 years another 682 people. Over that same 5 years, we're projected to add another 1,000 jobs. I just don't get that. So we've got to figure out how to get those employees living here in Muskogee. So if we stand any chance to change this fate, we must invest in ourselves and create a quality of place, not only where people want to work, but where they choose to live. And so the good news, we just passed $12 million for residential street improvements. Yay. The city's proactively working with housing developers to improve or increase our housing inventory. And we have an unprecedented opportunity on October 8th. If it's not on your calendar already, you'll get a text from me. October 8th to support public education and MARB future, Muskogee's future, through the passage of the Muskogee Public Schools bond issue. So important. With companies now chasing workers, Muskogee's future depends on our ability to attract and retain talent. And the truth, absolutely, the condition of our schools does impact the decision on whether or not people want to live here. And so the passage of the bond, along with Muskogee's growing retail sector, our downtown revitalization efforts, our nationally recognized efforts to end generational poverty, I'll leave you with this. It's a great day to be a rougher. With that, I can't do all this alone. And so I'm so excited. I have my team here, and I would like to introduce them if you'll humble me for a second. First, and our longest tenured staff member, Lindsay McCall. Lindsay is our workforce development manager and is responsible for all those great things I covered. Kim Hackus was hired in February. Kim is our office manager / events coordinator, and Kim is also responsible for all of our GMMA activities, our Manufacturing Alliance. And Greg just came on board with us last week. Greg Holbert is our newest member and is our marketing and research manager. We are finally a full staff. I can't wait to see what we're going to accomplish the next 6 months. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Marie,
Yes.
Can you think of any other community right now today in the country that you'd like to be a part of other than Muskogee? I mean, we're right on the precipice of great things. Everything you just mentioned.
It's exciting.
Is that not a big deal?
Absolutely, it is a big deal, Patrick, and we are being recognized. We're being recognized across the state, across the country. A few examples of that: Lindsay was invited to speak on our workforce efforts at the Oklahoma Success Summit this year with educators and teachers. And then she will also be speaking. We're both speaking at the International Economic Development Council. So internationally, note. So yeah, it's an exciting time to be in Muskogee. I'm so proud as someone born and raised here in Muskogee to see all the great things that are happening. There are other model communities in which we benchmark ourselves against, but also partner with, particularly those communities in Oklahoma that were like-minded. And so we do have those partnership opportunities. I'd love to sit down and visit with you and discuss those more too.
Marie, do you have the latest on the status of the port?
Okay, so Wayne, I really try to stay away from those discussions and let
I
them. Is
understand.
Scott behind me? He is here. Scott,
He
would you
is.
like to address that?
Do I need to tell you who I am and where I live?
We
I
know
live in
you.
town, by the way, 2833 Hickory Creek Road. Not a lake person anymore, or I am a lake person. But so I guess we summed it up today talking with several of our political leaders, and that is there's never been a more challenging time for the ports in Oklahoma, not just Muskogee, but the ports in Oklahoma. I hesitate to give you a number for the damages, particularly since I see Dwayne sitting over here. So, but astronomical, unprecedented, catastrophic event, the flood, and the aftermath may be worse. The river's being drained right now, trying to get barges recovered and removed from the Lock and Dam 16. We were down there last Thursday, standing on top of the dam, looking at the barges. It's a mangled bunch of steel that is keeping 4 of the gates open. Therefore, the river's going to drain on its own. There's not enough water in the lakes to provide the amount of water needed to make up for the water that's going through those 4 gates. Tomorrow's going to be a media day, Dwayne. There was a media day planned last week, and it was canceled because of the rain. Sometime tomorrow, there will be an attempt to lift the barge that's on top of the other barge out of the 3 or 4 gates. So far, every effort has failed, which is very disturbing. The ports in Arkansas are open for business. That's also very concerning to me. It should be to the state. Our industries are not only suffering from infrastructure damages, which are, I'm not going to say what I think they are, but you would be impressed with the number. It would be more than you would imagine. There's been a loss of business by 4 or 5 companies who depend on the waterway and whose facilities are located along the waterway. And the transportation cost of trucking material from the Port of Little Rock or other locations where barges were already purchased, the freight was already purchased. These industries need the cargo that's in those barges, so they're being unloaded now in Arkansas and trucked to Oklahoma. I can't tell you exactly what that cost is, but it is a cost that, if it continued, would lead to things that we don't want to talk about. I know at the Tulsa Port of Catoosa, one of their companies and shippers has already moved and gone to Houston. So I hate to think that it would come to that. I'm hopeful that it won't. I have a meeting with the governor on September 3rd. I've had ongoing conversations with Secretary of Transportation. It's a tough time. We'll be in Washington, D.C. September 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th, talking to Assistant Secretary of the Army James and everybody else, Office of Management and Budget, others. Our delegation in Washington, of course, is very supportive. Our state delegation is very supportive. We want to get the governor more involved. There's really never been a time like this.
Well, thank you very much. And Marie, I did not want to take away because, one,
I like my job, Wayne.
when you look at, we have done a phenomenal job of retention and what we're doing for all the companies we have out at the port. And unfortunately, we had a natural disaster that shut down so much. And right now, I do appreciate Ken Doak for being on Facebook and giving us updates of what it is. And I know it's kind of been hour by hour, and that's why I couldn't. He was releasing pictures where the barges are out there, and I didn't know if you had the latest. And I really do appreciate, the latest. But I know kind of the here and now is, what's going to happen, and we really don't know. But I just wanted to kind of know the latest of, where we're at on getting the barges undone from the gates, where we can see what the recovery will be, because we don't know what kind of recovery time that's going to be until we move to that next step. So I do appreciate the update, but in no way, shape, or form do I want to take away from your report, even though it sure seems like it does, because the last 6 months, when I looked over that report, when I received it, it's just like every other one. It is phenomenal of how much we are very, very competitive in a very difficult marketplace. We've got so much to offer in our community, but if we are not actively pursuing this natural disaster, we cannot be competitive in the future. And so I appreciate the efforts of the port and in what has been happening and what's going to happen in the future. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. The silver lining is we have learned a bunch through this experience, and so hopefully we can take those lessons and hopefully apply them to future events. Hopefully they're not as catastrophic, but
Well, we're very lucky to have the people looking after us that we have.
That's
and we
right.
appreciate all of you.
thank
And
you.
I want to thank you for mentioning the school bond issue, because I think it is a vital part of what we need to do to make a next step in Muskogee. And I know there's very few people out there that are disagreeing with us, and they don't understand the growth that we need to the step for the growth that we need in our city. We've got to have this bond issue, and I appreciate you mentioning that as well.
You'll be hearing from me more.
Well, keep up the good work.
Thank you very much.
Yes. I don't think we need any action on this, do we, Mr. Attorney?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you for the report. Item 8, please.
Receive report on municipal court processes relating to juvenile offenders, as well as discuss and provide necessary direction to staff to study and issue a report and recommendations on possible reforms.
Counselor Coleman?
Yes, ma'am. To the mayor and council, we want to first of all acknowledge the fact that Mr. Tucker has worked diligently with us on this preparation, preparing for this presentation on tonight. As many of you may recall, we were very fortunate in 2018 to adopt the Poor People's Campaign, which was a national call for moral revival. And in adopting that as a city, we made a decision that we were going to do what we could to make certain that perpetual poverty in Muskogee was something that could be properly addressed. Let's see the next slide. So what we've done since that time as part of the Poor People's Campaign is several things. One, we were very successful in working with other agencies within the city to coordinate amnesty days, October 16th through 17th, 2018, as well as March 26th through 27, 2019. Those gave opportunities to individuals who had fines to find ways that they can actually compensate for what they had done in a way that was affordable, and even work with those individuals to see if there was some mechanism where they can do other things besides pay money out of their pocket to be able to do it. One of the things that we know happens in the criminal justice system as we talk about reform regarding the Poor People's Campaign is that many people would have a better opportunity to get out of the system of perpetual incarceration or trouble with the criminal justice system if they had a better opportunity to be able to make restitution for the fines. And so that's what those amnesty days did. We're also in the process right now, and this is probably as good of news as anybody could expect, that we actually will have expungement clinics that are coming to Muskogee, the first class being October 5th, second one being October 12th. What we're going to do in the class and the clinic is help people who need assistance getting things expunged from their record, understand what that process involves, and then on the day of the clinic, actually sitting down and visiting with them with attorneys and legal staff to actually help them navigate through the process. What happens many times is that even though expungement is available, people don't take advantage of it because it's a very cumbersome process. It's a very detail-oriented process to understand the legal mechanisms that are required to have an expungement actually take place. And so we've set that up through this program. And then the next phase of this Poor People's Campaign that we want to look at is proposed staff study on municipal juvenile justice and impacts that it has on families. One of the things that we want to be able to do if we're going to address Poor People's Campaign in terms of the criminal justice system is be certain that we are proactive and being certain that we keep as many juveniles out of the criminal justice system that we can. Nobody wins in Muskogee if we have a system that's set up where juvenile offenders become adult offenders because there's no mechanism to help families to be certain that we come up with programs to keep them out of the system. And so certainly when we think about it as a city, for all the great things that we're getting ready to do in Muskogee, it's incumbent upon us in the municipal court to make certain that we have a healthy balance between accountability for the actions that people committed against perpetuating poverty through fines and fees. And so we're not attempting to say to anyone that anyone should get a pass. We know that in the country in which we live, our society, state, local, nationally, that there ought to be consequences for actions when people commit them. But what we're trying to say is where is the balance between what those consequences should actually be in terms of their fines and fees? Because we want to be in a situation where we say Muskogee is a place to live, work, and play, that people also have a second chance at improving their lives, especially those people who are juveniles and for their parents as well. So for juvenile justice, this balance is more difficult because it is the parents of the juvenile offenders that are ultimately responsible for the payment of the monetary penalties imposed by the court. That's a challenge because we have a lot of parents who would be better parents if they had some opportunity to get out of the system of debt that's created from their children actually going through the system. Most of us here today, as I look around the council, Diaz, as well as those in the audience, remember that when we were kids, we got detention. We got other mechanisms in play to be certain that we didn't end up in anybody's juvenile court. Well, time has changed over the last 25 to 30 years, and we need to be certain that as times have changed as a city, we're in a position where we can actually help people to have restoration done to their lives. So what we're asking for tonight, to ensure that the juvenile justice process system is carried out in the spirit of the Poor People's Campaign resolution that we adopted as a council, is that we direct staff to study the juvenile justice methods of our courts and then submit recommendations 90 days from now. And basically what that would encompass is having Mr. Tucker, along with others, to be involved in the conversation to see what can be done to be certain that as we move forward with the juvenile justice process, that juveniles have a chance to change their lives as well as their parents as well. And so my motion would be, of course, after any of the discussion that we would have, is that we move to direct staff to study juvenile justice methods in our municipal court and then submit recommendations for reform within 90 days.
Marlon, I'd like to make an observation to everyone here, in particular to the amnesty program. I've had real interaction with real people that had a complete loss of hope, that felt, I can never pay these fines, I'm screwed forever, I'm a perpetual loser. I can't, I'm where I am, and that's where I'll always be. And this program has afforded people to get to a place where they can see in 6 months, in 10 months, in 12 months, they can have paid their debt to society and start anew. Their records may be a little bit cleaner. Certainly their fines and penalties and that part of what they owe have been paid off. Not given away, not cleaned, and you know, they have to meet the system halfway. But even meeting the system halfway gives a fella or a gal a sense of pride and a sense of effort, and I did this. And they did do it, and they are doing it. Just wanted to point out that these are all great programs and great ideas. In particular, I've seen how one of them has worked, and I can't be more proud for our community and of some of our community leaders, our city attorneys, our city judges. I don't know if people recognize how big of a deal this is and how uplifting and positive it is for everyone. Thank you. Yes.
I got a question. How's this going to affect like truancies, the truancy citations, disorderly conduct citations that children will receive, like from really serious offenses, like at schools and stuff?
Right now, we're uncertain how that will play because what we want to be able to do is study how that affect what those effects would be. By having conversations, for instance, with people in the school system, such as yourself or the superintendent, who could articulate the need or not need thereof for these type of fines as it relate to truancy. But we wouldn't know that tonight. We would only know that after we've actually started engaging in those conversations to be certain that we examine what's being done and what can be improved about it.
Because, you know, I understand where you're coming from. Some of my issues that follow with this is that unless you've dealt with some of these kids and you understand their behavior with this, they could care less whether you give them amnesty for their being tardy at school or late at school or not showing up at all, because by the time they get a citation at school, and this is kind of where I was thinking about this, and this is just a small part, is we work with them, and 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 then we have to write them a citation. Then now you're telling me that if they get to court, we're going to work with them, work with them, work with them, and then at the end of the semester, it washes away, and then we start all over again. I would really like to see a little bit more about what y'all are planning on doing with that, because right now we have kids that already say, I don't care anyway, and their parents tell us that they don't care, to the extent of that I've had a lady get up to $2,400 worth of citations and still not care and not bring her kids to school. So I would really like to be I understand that sometimes it's not the parents' fault and we need to take care of that, but at the other time, we need to make sure that we're not just giving everybody 50 million chances to continue to break rules and the laws, and kind of have a proactive look about this, but not do it in a situation that it's just a blanket for everything, because that scares me. When we start doing everything as a blanket, that bothers me. I do understand we don't want people in poverty. We don't want them to be fined and it keeps them in poverty. I understand those things. But we also need to make sure that those mechanisms that we're talking about putting in place also leave us with some teeth in what we have so we can keep kids in school. Because if all we do is giving them amnesty when it's that time, then sometimes maybe those teeth are not in it to keep them in school. And right now, I would rather at the end of when they get ready to get out of that school, that's finished that school year, that they have passed, got an education, then got amnesty. And then at the end of their high school year maybe, then give them amnesty, say, look, see, we had to force you to do this. Because there is a population out there that could care less what you're doing to them. They're going to manipulate things, and I want to make sure that no one can manipulate this so the kid doesn't get educated.
Yeah, and certainly what we're talking about tonight is not a blanket system. What we're talking about is evaluating what we have to be certain that whatever we come back with, there's a balance that says, here's what you did versus here's your fine. How can we work together to be certain that everybody is playing to make Muskogee a better place? Particularly when you think about the presentation that was just made, it's hard to justify to anyone outside of our community that we've got a skilled workforce and are making strides to be certain that people have opportunities for job placement and job employment. If we don't do something on the front end to work with parents and their young people to be certain that everybody's in a situation where they can take advantage of the system in a way that they can be economically solvent. And so that doesn't mean wiping away fees for free, but it does mean that we need to have a good balance between what accountability is and what we do to make certain these people can be made whole.
Well, and that's what I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate you bringing this up, Mr. Councilman Coleman. The one thing I'm afraid of that I was processing here was that we have a couple projects where they can do community service and stuff like that, so they don't have to. Very few of these children, as far as truants and stuff, their fines are really assessed in a monetary value. It's more assessed in a community service or something like that for our juveniles. Am I wrong? There's quite a few of them that receive that.
No, that's true, and they can do community service for most of the juvenile fines. Truancy is one of the exceptions, unless it's specifically granted by our judge.
Yeah, and so I mean, there's a lot of things in place already. So, and I understand, and I'm glad you brought this up because it'll probably be a good thing that we put in place. I just wanted to put my 2 cents on that part, and thank you.
I think it'd be really wise to put together a committee to look at this. I mean, this is one of the steps that we need to look at overall, and I understand Dan's concerns with addressing it. But I think we got to look at the overall problem of why, especially with somebody not coming to school, what is the overall problem of why they're not coming to school? And it's clear that sometimes fines are not going to do that. And I think with a committee coming together, I think the most important aspect of that is who's going to be serving on that committee, and to make sure everybody that's involved in the juvenile justice system is involved in that. And I think everybody that's been serving on that has done a phenomenal job, because we've seen how it has made so many changes as it is. But I think it's a great idea to really address some challenges, because our society has changed, and we've got to change with that society to make sure we're addressing this systemic problem that we're experiencing in our community right now. So we're making sure that all our students are getting the education they deserved and are being prepared for the job force and for the future of our community. So I think it's a great idea.
We've got programs for the juvenile segment. When I was in particular talking about amnesty, and I don't even think of amnesty as a resolution for kids not going to school. This amnesty program, and Mr. Tucker, tell me if I'm right or wrong, the people that it helps are the young parents, the 27, 28-year-olds to the 33, 34-year-olds that are starting, they have grown out of the I don't care anymore to I've got to keep this job. I've got to have my driver's license. I've got to stay stable for my family so that my little ones, are okay. What I've seen out of these programs with that segment of population, their mid to late 20s to their mid to late 30s, is phenomenal as far as I'm concerned, just phenomenal. In regards to kids with bad attitudes, and I certainly could have fell into that category when I was younger. That's kind of a whole different animal and a whole different beast, and I couldn't begin to tell you how what would be helpful there or not.
Well, and I'm all excited about this, and I just wanted to put that in there a little bit. Like our superintendent, he's proactive about getting these kids back in school and stuff like that as well, and getting them where we don't find them a lot for a lot of things. So, we're making those changes as well inside the school system. Like we had let me see if I can say this right, reclamation teams. We went all over the city of Muskogee the last week and a half, and we went to every kid that did not show back up at school in Muskogee School's house to invite them back to school and try to get them back in. And that was over 320 kids. Now, a lot of those moved out of our city school district, but a lot of them came back to school. And those are things that we're trying to do. So I understand that. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in. That's all it was.
I understand you're just asking for a study and report tonight. Is that right?
Yes, but the motion needs to be carried to be able
We
to.
do have a motion
Thanks,
on
ma'am.
the floor.
Yes, ma'am.
Second.
And a second. Is there any further discussion?
Hey, Ms. Sportsman, I'll be recognized.
All right.
This won't take long. It's a shame we have to go through all this amnesty and all these programs. So, Councilman Coleman, when I was growing up as a kid, wasn't no such thing as detention. It's an old saying, spare the rod, spoil the child. The trouble is, with the world today is that when we were growing up, we knew not to get in trouble. We get a whooping, a good whooping. We had neighbors that would give us a whooping. We didn't have to worry about it. If you mess up at church, and them people at church, they're going to give you a whooping in church. And when you get home, your parents is going to give you a whooping. And these kids nowadays, they don't fear that. And it's sad. The laws have made this the way it is now, where you can't whoop your children. My parents, like I was telling Mr. Dowell, bless, when I first come in here this evening, I said, my parents would be in jail right now. According to the laws, all our parents would be in jail.
That's right.
But just, that's the thing is. But, we have to, Councilman Johnson said we have to go now by the times. But I believe in the old days when I'd go to bed at night, my mother would always say, my grandmother always say, good night, I love you. Some kids don't even get that when they go to sleep from parents nowadays, younger parents. That's why, I try to teach my grandkids, my daughters and my son, to tell their kids they love them before they go to bed. But I appreciate what you're bringing up and everything, and this is, this is a good program. But I just realized that, like I say, I'm just so thankful I was brought up in the old days. I'll turn the floor back over to you, Ms. Mayor.
Okay.
Before we vote, I feel like I want to clarify something just to make sure. When we did the amnesty days back in 2018 and then earlier this year, it was not a free pass for any prior conduct. What it was amnesty from arrest. And so those folks who came in who had active warrants on that program, we lifted the warrant through our, not our own municipal judge, but also our district court judges, so that those individuals could get reestablished to ultimately, as Councilor Coleman said, satisfy their burden to society. And so the intent, at least as we're looking at the studies here with particularity on truancy and those type of things, at this point, we're not looking at anything that would be what I think maybe, Councilor Hall, you were thinking it'd be a traditional amnesty. That's not what we're looking at. A few weeks ago, we had a visit from a group out of Washington, D.C. That was set up by Councilor Reed. They are doing a study on criminal justice reform in Oklahoma, and we think that the report that they will be issuing will have some really good data and some helpful insight into not only how Muskogee is handling its juvenile justice program, because I met with them at length to talk about what we do, but also many other cities in Oklahoma, because they're going to create an entire report in Oklahoma. And so hopefully we can review that and make sure that we incorporate all their best practices in what we recommend that you all adopt. So I just wanted to make that clarification. Thank you,
Yeah, I
Mayor.
know. They wanted me to call them. I called them. They wouldn't return my phone call. Hurt my feelings.
They were probably in my office.
We have a motion and a second, but before we go any further, we also have our municipal judge here. Would you like to say a word?
I would, thank you. Hello. I just have one quick thing. I want to invite any of you to please come to our juvenile court. Right now it's every second and fourth Thursday of the month. We will start going back into every Thursday. But if you're really interested in what's going on in our juvenile court, that's the best place to see it. You can see what the kids really are like, what the parents really are like, what we really are dealing with. There's great things happening there, and there's things that are discouraging as well. There's a lot of people that assume what kids are like these days, what's happening in there. And if you see it, I think you have feel a little more encouraged about our youth and our parents. But please come see us in juvenile court. We would love to have you there. And of course, the adult court, I'd love to have you there too. But that's for another time. So please come see us in the juveniles. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll try to stay out of the adult court. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson?
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs?
Yes.
Patrick Kale?
Yes?
Marlon Coleman?
Yes.
Ivory Van?
Yes.
Derek Reed?
Yes.
Dan Hall?
Yes.
Jamie Stout?
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 9.
Consider approval to authorize the city manager to negotiate a contract with Olson for engineering services for 1, the Hilldale School Access Improvement Project, a joint project between the City of Muskogee and the Muskogee Creek Nation, as well as 2, the Smith Ferry Road Drainage Project, a project of the City of Muskogee, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Riley.
Yes, Mayor and Council. This is our project that was approved several months ago, a joint venture between the Muskogee Creek Nation and the city. The city will be handling the engineering portion of the street project and the drainage, associated drainage project outside of the right-of-way. And then once plans are done, the Muskogee Creek Nation will handle the construction of the roadway inside the right-of-way. We convened a committee of 5 people, myself, 2 other city staff, representative of Muskogee Creek Nation, and a representative from Hilldale. We interviewed 6 different firms, and there's a unanimous decision to pick Olson. We recommend approval, and we're ready to get this project started.
Thank you very much.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson?
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs?
Yes.
Patrick Hale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
No.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 10.
Consider approval to authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute an audit engagement letter with Arledge and Associates, certified public accountants, to perform the fiscal year 2018-2019 audit or take other necessary action.
Ms. Kingston.
Yes. Mayor and council, this item is to allow the city manager to hire an audit firm for the city's 2019 audit. We contacted two audit firms, Arledge and Associates and Crawford and Associates. Arledge quoted a price of $59,000 and can start the audit at the end of October. Crawford would not be able to start the audit until after December 31st, which is after the date that we need to file with the state. So I recommend approval for Arledge and Associates.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair, Mayor, the only question I have, and it may be for the city manager, is when we do these processes for audit, are they put out for bid, or do we just make calls to see who would do it?
We solicit for professional services in this case, and so we had decided not to move on from the auditor that we'd had last year. It's good to change every once in a while, and these were two highly recommended firms. There's unfortunately not a whole lot of people that do these complicated level audits.
Okay.
Is this within budget?
Yes.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs. Patrick Hale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 11.
Consider approval to reject all bids on the Hatbox Field Improvement Project and direct staff to rebid the project based upon a new scope of work or take other necessary action.
Mr. Wilkerson.
Madam Mayor and council members, we opened bids a few weeks ago, and we don't really have an explanation about why our bids were so high, but we would like to make an attempt to rebid this. I've met with the architect a couple of times now, and they've given us some options to try to bring the price down for our base bid to get it within our budget. I've also visited with some local subcontractors and contractors that have given me their opinion about the project and given us some ideas of, there were some things that were probably in excess, maybe a little more Cadillac than what we need, so we're going to bring those down. We've got a few things that we're going to pull out that can be added later so that we can get this building built, and we'd recommend that you reject these bids and give us another chance to rebid it.
Move for approval.
Mark, if we go back and take some things away from this building and relook at it to make it cheaper, is it going to look cheaper?
I don't think the look will be affected. The mechanical was high. They're going to redo. We're going to relook at how they're doing the mechanical. There's a ventilation system there that was expensive. We're going to look at doing a different ventilation, maybe even add it later. So it's not a necessity to the job. Still have the heat and air. The square footage will remain the same. That's the first thing they wanted to do, is reduce the size of the building. And we said, no, we do not want to do that. So the architects, I think, just kind of missed this. We did add a few things as we got into the project that they felt was necessary or that we would like, but we had to go back and review that and get it down to where we can, within our $2 million budget.
Okay. I'll second that motion.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Okay. You realize our yes vote is to reject the bids. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Patrick Hale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 12.
Consider approval of amended City Council Policy 3-6-2, drug testing policy, or take other necessary action.
Ms. Plunkett.
Madam Chair, members of the council, as you are all familiar, the state law changed in, I believe, November of last year to allow medical marijuana, both to be sold and to be consumed. Our policy needs to be changed as state law is now changing effective August 29th. They are adding safety-sensitive provisions into the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Act and the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana and Patient Protection Act, which is OMMA or OMMPPA. Right now, any employee who is not under federal regulations or DOT regulations, if they were to consume medical marijuana, if they were to go for a drug test, their test result would be come back as a negative if they have a medical marijuana card. Come Thursday, if that person is safety sensitive, which I have a list defined in the policy, and it is a little bit more strict and more defined now as it was revised. If they were to test positive come Thursday and they're safety sensitive, then they would be under the terms of either termination or the last chance agreement as we offer right now. This policy has been amended to include the OMMA and OMMPPA provisions, also define the safety-sensitive terms, and we would recommend an effective date of October the 1st, kind of as a safe harbor provision for those employees who may be under medical marijuana right now and still have it in their system in the month of September. And then, of course, October 1st, if they were to test positive for medical marijuana, if they're safety sensitive, then they would be subjected to discipline or the last chance agreement. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Where in this document are the list of safety sensitive?
If you turn to the, I think yours is two-sided. So if you flip 3 pages under random testing, section 2, it has a letter E and then 10 specifics under there. And then the policy that I handed you tonight, I included another provision in there for number 8. It is perform the operation, maintenance, or oversight of critical services and infrastructure. That perform the operation, maintenance, and oversight was not included. I failed to include that, so I have revised that and given that to you.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Plunkett or any discussion?
And it would be, sorry to interrupt, the revised version that I have handed out
Move
this
for
evening.
approval with the revised version with an effective date of October 1st.
Thank you.
And I second that.
Okay.
One-
Anybody else?
Yes, ma'am. One question I had, there's a section I that talks about post-rehabilitation testing.
Yes, sir.
But I didn't see in the policy where it talks about what the rehab part would consist of.
So administratively, if they are, if they test positive, if we send them for the last chance agreement, they are required to attend our EAP. They get assessed at our EAP. They take a drug screen or an alcohol screen there on site. Actually, I don't think it's on site. I think they use another facility. They receive those results back, find out what the levels are to see how frequent or how recent they may have used. Of course, those tests aren't very or super specific, so they try to use their best case judgment and experience on that. And then if they are a heavy user and somebody who's been addicted for quite some time, they would require them to go to a more advanced rehabilitation. It may be in Muskogee, it may be in Tulsa. If it is very severe, it may be Laureate, which is an inpatient. And then they complete that training, and then they provide me information in regards to if they're able to return to work or not. If they're able to return to work, then they provide me the information on a sheet of paper, says you can return them to work, and then I provide them either the drug or alcohol test respectively, or both if needed, for them to return to work. And then they're subjected to testing for 2 years for a non-DOT employee and 5 years for a DOT employee under federal law. And if they were to test positive, not only during that 2 or 5 year period, but for the remainder of their employment, if they're offered that last chance agreement, then they would be terminated.
Yeah, and the reason why I asked that, I wanted to be sure that it's clear to the employees that they know that these are the steps that lead up to being eligible for post-rehabilitation consideration.
And we do provide that during the drug testing training that we provide, both pre-employment and throughout the year when I give that.
And there's a section in here that talks about if the employee comes to their supervisor, whoever, within 24 hours. Is that enough time, or should it be 48 hours or 72 hours?
So it's not within. It
Okay.
has to be within 24 hours of any test.
Okay.
The point of that is if I were to call you for a random test today, you don't come to me after your supervisor says, Mr. Coleman, you're subjected to a random test. I need to take you. And then you say, I need to go talk to Kelly, or I need to tell you that I do opioids or whatever it may be. That's too late. So the 24 hours or 48 hours, it's just a number. So long as they come to me or their supervisor and tell us that they are that they have a problem, then we will also get them the help that they need. We remove them from any testing for randoms that they may be subjected to while they go to the EAP. They're required to complete that training, kind of like a last chance agreement, but it's not the last chance. They have come to us willingly to go through rehabilitation.
Right. But that's still within the time frame that they have to come to you and say.
It has to be 24 hours prior to, so it can't be after the fact that they're called. So, and people are like, well, how am I going to know where I go for a random, or how am I know if I'm going to be in an accident? Well, that's the point. You don't know. So that 24 hours or 48 hours, or whether it's 8 hours, it is before the employee is aware that they need to take a test.
Yeah, because I'm trying to make certain this makes sense in my mind that they actually have an opportunity to say they have a problem. Most employees, once they find out they're going to be randomly drug tested, will come clean and say, well, you know what, I need to say I've got this issue. And if the number is immaterial, then maybe we need to come up with a material number where they have an actual chance to.
They have a chance any time of the day, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, to call and say, I have an addiction problem, I need to come and see you. So that's their opportunity. They're also provided that opportunity in training, in pre-employment, that they have that opportunity before the test is called. Because once the test is called, it's too late. They may try to cover up the fact that they just used 2 days ago because they were with their friends and peer pressure, when actually that's not a reason for, that I have a problem. It was just a happenstance.
And I guess the last question I have, then why do we need to say 24 hours?
24 hours is a good rule of thumb, because if I were to tell Greg that his employee needs to go on, let's say it's this evening, and I just run into him in the hallway and I say, hey, Marlon needs to go tomorrow for a drug screen, he can't go up to you and say, hey, Kelly's going to, and I'm not saying he would do this, hypothetically speaking, he can't go up to you and say, you're going to go, be called for a drug screen. And if we change that to 48 hours, that would be better. But again, the time frame it's just a number.
Thank you.
So, let me make sure I got this understood, Kelly. Now, marijuana, you can't, like if I became an employee and I had a card, a medical card, to use marijuana under the state of Oklahoma's law, I mean, I can't use it at work.
It depends on what type of a position you're in. If you're in a safety-sensitive position, come Thursday, you would not. I mean, you can continue to work, but you're in violation of state law. So if you wanted to become an employee, depending on the position, if it's not a safety-sensitive position, you held your medical marijuana card, it would come back to us as a negative test. But if you're safety-sensitive, that would come up as a positive screen.
What's the safety-sensitive position?
They are listed as Councilmember Coleman asked in section, it's on page 3 if you flip, random testing, section 2. It's duties that may risk injury to themselves or others, employees whose job responsibility involve public safety or the safety of others. They must use dangerous tools and equipment in the performance of their job duties, must perform job duties at heights, must perform job duties and use dangerous chemicals or hazardous material, including potentially violent, flammable, combustible materials, elements, chemicals, or any other highly regulated components. Operate, repair, monitor equipment or motor vehicles, machinery, power tools. Perform duties in residential or commercial premises of a customer, supplier, or vendor. Perform the operation, maintenance, or oversight of critical services and infrastructure, which we have would be water. prepare or handle food, or if they must carry a firearm in the performance of job duties. And above that, of course, we have federal regulations, which are the CDL holders, and then also included on that for the safety sensitive would be our firefighters, and then anybody that would be authorized to carry a firearm.
So have you sent out memos to these safety sensitive?
I'm in the process of revising all of the job classifications this week. When I finalize that, I will be providing a list of all positions that will be classified as safety sensitive, and that will go out to all 450 employees. I have also revised our job application to include that notice that even if you're safety sensitive, you are not exempt from the provisions of state law. And if they wanted to know if their position that they're applying for would be subjected to the safety sensitive laws, then they can either go to the job brochure that they received or the classification description where they saw the announcement, because they will have, each of those job announcements will say specifically notice on the bottom with a long provision of medical marijuana use.
So Councilor Van, if that was a very good question, and we did have a discussion about that today to make sure everybody knows where they fall, because as Kelly pointed out earlier, there's some employees that may fall in the category where it's okay for them to have a medical card and use medical cannabis now, but later in the week it wouldn't. So we have to be sure we notify all employees and let them know why that is. And again, that's a state law change. That's not us deciding, but we want to make sure we're informing them as that happens.
That's all I'm saying.
You're absolutely right.
That's all I'm saying is just make sure you inform them.
Yes, sir.
Ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of why the effective date is pushed back, so that people that are in that situation have that safe harbor period.
Okay.
So if I'm doing clerical work or maybe janitorial work, and let's say I was taking codeine cough syrup to alleviate some discomfort, I could work those positions and take my cough syrup, but I could not take my cough syrup and drive a fire truck or a trash truck or...
As long as it's a prescription written for
Right.
you, then it would pass as a non-positive.
No, but what I'm saying is, even though I'm allowed to come to work, you're going to say, Patrick, you're not driving that trash truck today.
We don't know that you're taking that cough syrup because it reports to us as a negative test. We don't know that you're taking that unless you're taking your spouse's. Then it would report to us as a positive. Unless you're in a safety-sensitive position and that may interfere with your job, then the medical review officer will reach out to us. They will also reach out to the employee, and the employee will be required to fill out a form with their physician, and the physician has to sign off that the employee is taking that prescription as prescribed. Okay. That doesn't happen very often, but it has happened in the past.
What about the testing? How clear is the testing regarding the CBD oil in relationship to the THC?
To my knowledge, if it contains THC, then it would come up as a positive. However, the CBD oil, if it's just regular CBD without the THC, then it would be a negative because it doesn't contain THC. That's my understanding.
My concern is, and this is just from being out there, a lot of people are selling and a lot of the health and benefits that I'm hearing are coming from the CBD. But a lot of people are selling that may contain THC. What if an employee was tested that's taking CBD and it comes up that they have a test positive for THC?
Unfortunately, that would fall under the same provisions as any other positive drug screen, and it would be reported as a positive, and we would follow proper procedure for that. So I would caution the employees if they're doing that. There's in-home drug testing kits that you can get. I would advise them to go take a test to see if that's going to pop.
And that's the concerning for everybody out there that's doing the CBD oil. There's so many products out there that can be labeled CBD that could contain some portion of THC that could come back on a drug test.
And I'm not certain. Councilmember Kale may know specifics on that, but I'm not aware of which part of the THC, or if it's any part of the THC, or what.
And it
that's
depends on
utilized
what
in
kind of
those.
drug testing you're doing too, and I think that's what I've seen a lot of too, and it depends on how you're doing it and everything. So I didn't know if how we're proceeding it. Now, I know this is a new area that everybody's having challenges with, and a lot of it's what you're buying, how you're buying it, and how good it's made, and everything related to it. I would just hate to see an employee trying to take something that they think is right and clear, and they have no second chance.
Yeah.
I think you've seen that if you're a sports fan, that there's sometimes people that get busted when then they say, I was in my supplement, and they always say, you're responsible for what you put in your body.
Yep.
And so it's a tough deal.
It's a tough road.
And so we want to try and have opportunities for people, but for all our employees, they're going to be responsible for what they put in their body and what they use.
Good point. Thank you.
Can you all think of anything else to talk about? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs. Patrick Kale.
Yes?
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 13, thank you, Kelly.
Consider approval of the recommendation by the City of Muskogee Foundation Board of Directors appointing Nancy Gaden to serve a one-year term as board chair beginning August 1, 2019 and ending July 31, 2020, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Miller?
Yes, as you are well aware, the bylaws of the City of Muskogee Foundation allow us to vote on the chairman as well as the board members, and Mr. Merrick from the foundation is here to address and answer any questions you may have about Nancy's appointment or the next one, next agenda item as well.
Yes, thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Happy to answer any questions.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any questions, discussion?
Yeah,
Roll call.
I think next time he comes, he should bring us some steak from the Cattlemen's Association up in Oklahoma City. There's a restaurant up there. Ooh, they got some good steak. Am I right?
I will take that under advisement as a consideration.
Turn the
Roll
floor back
call.
to you, Ms. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs. Patrick Kale.
Yes?
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries. Item 14.
Consider approval of the recommendation by the City of Muskogee Foundation Board of Directors appointing Ren Stratton and Ann Ong, each to serve a 6-year term beginning August 1, 2019 and ending July 31, 2025, and the appointment of Dan Morris to fill the combined unexpired term of Keith Bigelow, and a full 6-year term beginning August 1, 2019 and ending July 31, 2026, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Miller?
Well, I can't say it any better than Tammy did, so that's the business before us, and Mr. Merrick's here to answer any questions.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Boy, you keep them quiet. You need to come back more often.
Well, it's not as exciting as medical marijuana. I'm sorry.
Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs. Patrick Kale.
Yes?
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes, and the motion carries.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. I don't think we've had any citizens sign up to speak to us tonight. So we'll go into item 15.
Consider an executive session to discuss and take possible action on the following. A, pursuant to Section 307B4, Title 25, Oklahoma statutes, consider convening an executive session to discuss a lawsuit pending in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Oklahoma styled Jarrell Edwards versus City of Muskogee, case number CV00347-RAW, and take appropriate action in open session, including the appointment of a fully authorized settlement representative.
Mayor, before we look at making a motion to go into executive session, it may not be necessary, so I did want to make a statement on that. We talked with our OMAG's counsel who's handling the case, and the city of Muskogee was actually dismissed from this case back in May. And so when we confirmed with him, it does not appear that there is a necessity to appoint a settlement representative and discuss settlement of any kind, since we are not actually a party to it. The remaining allegations within the case are against the individual officers for which the city is indemnifying, but they're doing that through OMAG. So it's not necessary that we appoint a settlement rep at this time. So it's not necessary that we go into executive session unless anyone wants to discuss further details of the case. But as of right now, or as of May, we have been dismissed from this lawsuit.
So does that mean we can just adjourn this meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
It's done. We're adjourned.